everybody. Welcome to the Go With Your Gut podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Dreyer, and today we are talking about emotions. Yes, that's right. I said it, emotions. Why? Because we are all human, we all have them, and also because it's been a very prominent thing in my life lately to be able to deal with them well and figure out what the heck they're all meaning, because it turns out they can have a lot of different side effects that a lot of people probably don't realize. So let's get into it a little bit here. And like I said, yes, I talk about emotions a lot because, well, I have a lot of them. And up until the last few years, I still had a lot of them, but I didn't really know how to deal with them. I didn't really know how to decipher what they were trying to tell me was going on. And you may say, okay, I don't really want to hear this. This is a little woo-woo for me. And some of it might be, yes. However, I would encourage you to keep listening because I looked up a couple things because I know a lot of people who still deal with emotions, don't like to deal with them, but I can very much tell because I have eyes as well as they've told me that they deal with a lot of different side effects of them and they don't know what's happening. They don't know why all these things are happening. And full disclosure, yes, obviously I am not a doctor, a therapist, or any licensed anything. However, I have dealt with a lot of these things myself. I have experienced a lot of symptoms myself, and I am in the thick of working through all of these things pretty much myself. So there's a little bit of experience for you. And anyway, let's keep going. So I've mentioned a lot that I am very much emotional, and I used to not necessarily push them down, but I didn't really know how to deal with them. And I know a lot of people who say, this doesn't feel good. I'm not good at dealing with emotions. I'm not going there. I'm going to push them down. I'm going to deal with them later. Maybe that's what we were taught growing up. Maybe that's just how our brain works because we're not good at the soft skills, which is great. If you're not good at that, always room to learn and room for improvement. But you do still deal with emotions to some degree. Maybe that's frustration, anger, all of those for you. Yes, they don't feel good to feel, but you do still have to deal with them. The other thing that I hear, well, all the time is that emotions make us weak. Now, that comes from a real long time, and by that I mean generations upon generations of programming, because whoever decided that emotions made us weak, that we weren't allowed to cry, to be frustrated, to deal with things how our body needs us to deal with them. We had to be tough, thick-skinned. And let me tell you, you still have to have tough, thick skin to be able to deal with everything that your body is inside telling you. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the weak. But I am a firm believer that it does not make you weak to have emotions, to feel them, to figure out how the heck to deal with them. I would commend somebody highly for saying, you know what, I got him. Let's figure out how the heck to deal with this so that I don't have to think about it anymore, so that I can move on. So you've heard probably my story if you've listened to this at all. Years ago, I was going through quite a life transition, figuring out what the heck I wanted to do, who the heck I wanted to be, a lot of things. And that also meant dealing with frustration with myself. I was very conflicted inside because I didn't really know where I was supposed to go, but I was feeling all this anger and, well, frustration, like I said, and all these different things inside, and I didn't really know how to deal with them. And I don't really know when it was, but at one point, I think I made a decision and said, screw it. Let's open the door. Let's figure out how to work through these emotions, because I don't know how to deal with them, but I'm going to figure it out, because it's more worth my time to figure it out and be able to work through it than it is for me to push it down and it come around and bite me in the butt again. And then I have to deal with it later because I didn't do it the first time. So I honestly, it's not an easy process, because most of us, if you're an adult, then most of us have a lifetime of things that we need to work through that we just said, it's in the past and it doesn't matter anymore. That is true to some extent, but that's not totally true, because we still hold on to some of the crap that we used to go through, the things that have shaped us, but we're still holding on to some of that. We're still holding on to anger, grudges, all those things. And good gosh, that takes so much energy. And I guarantee you, the person or people who we are angry with or holding a grudge against, I would almost bet you that they're not thinking about you anymore. They're living their life and they're not concerned about why you're mad at them. And if you brought it up to them, they'd probably say, oh, I don't even remember that happening, even though you do, because it made an impression on you. It made you angry and hurt and whatever else. But I started working through all these things, because when I started to actually do the work to move through it, I found that instead of just letting it hang out here on the side, when it's on the side, it was always just kind of in the back of my head. It was always that nagging thing, and I could not ever move past it. I was so dang frustrated. I found out that when I actually took a second, it was more than a second, but who's counting? When I actually took the time to say, okay, where the heck is this coming from? Why am I mad? It's probably not why I'm mad, why I'm actually mad right now, because typically we get mad about something else when the root cause is something completely different. And we're just choosing to blame other people based on stupid things. So I found out that when I actually sat in it, when I actually thought about it, for me, I write it out. Therapy has helped with that. Heck, exercising, getting those endorphins going so that you can actually process through whatever works for you. But by actually sitting with it and figuring out what I was mad about, if I would, and it helped me move through it. And then half the time I'm like, yeah, that's not worth being mad at. That's not worth, let's face it, that's not worth the energy. None of us have energy to spare during the day. We got other things that we need to be paying attention to. So all the energy that you're putting on yourself to be frustrated at this person, be worried about this, be, mad at yourself, whatever the case may be, it's so much easier to find a way to take a couple minutes, work through it, rather than let it just sitting and stewing and worrying about it, when honestly, it's just taking up your energy. It's not doing anybody any good. So let's talk about suppressed energy, things that I pushed down on purpose because I didn't want to deal with it. Honestly, I don't know what I suppressed anymore. Probably anxiety, or the fact that I didn't feel good enough for a lot of things. I didn't think I could do a lot of things. I had to please everyone, but all of those things, that all just builds up. And what did it give me? high anxiety, um, bigger fear than I probably needed towards, well, a lot of things, a lot of self-doubt in various areas of my life, personal, professional, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to do. And I used to overthink everything. And honestly, I overthought it so much that I would not move forward with something. I would get myself worked up and then I wouldn't move anywhere. But I overthought everything. So when I decided to quit pushing these down and actually feel it, and yes, when I started doing that, it brought up other things that I honestly didn't know that I was feeling at all, but it was wonderful to be able to break through those barriers and work through it. I learned to move past a lot of things that just didn't matter. Situations that I've been hanging on to that I just needed to get past, forgive myself for, or say, yeah, okay, this sucked. This wasn't my smartest move. I'm done with that. It's in my past. Let's move forward. Work through a lot of fears that weren't real. I've talked a lot about fear on this as well, because fear is a very prominent emotion that I've been dealing with. And I feel like I've been dealing with it pretty good, but it keeps coming and smacking me in the face. And it's getting really irritating. But I know that I have to keep working through it because it's not going away. No matter what I do, move on to something else, deal with something, it keeps coming back and saying, Lauren, you can't do this. You shouldn't be doing this. You're not good enough to do this. You don't have the credentials to do this. And I keep having to say, I absolutely do. You can sit your butt down and be quiet because I'm going to do this anyway. And it's taken a lot to be able to get there. It's taken a lot to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to listen to that voice. It is there. It is very much there. And sometimes it gets the best of me and it makes me have some rough days. But I have learned to recognize that it's there and say, okay, where is this coming from? Is this coming from the fact that maybe I still don't have the confidence that I want? Maybe it's coming from the fact that, I'm not feeling a certain way or good about something, whatever that is. But working through the fears that I was making up that aren't real, the things that are in my head that I'm thinking, okay, this is going to stop me from doing this. When in all reality, I know that I'll be fine once I start. I know that I'll be great because I've done it multiple times. But it's just that thing in my head saying, this is bigger than anything you've done before. We probably shouldn't do this. No, not going there. But all of those emotions. And then, like I said a minute ago, what did feeling all those feelings allow me to do? It allowed me to get rid of those crappy feelings faster because I dealt with them. And also, it's been kind of nice because when something big and good has happened, I've gotten to celebrate that. I've gotten to experience those things longer because, well, we all like to have joy, excitement. We all like to feel loved, all that stuff. Yes, those are woo-woo things, softer skills that some of you may not be as good at, but that doesn't mean that you can't get there, because we all have to deal with these things to some extent. So with that, I wanted to bring in a couple of things, because all emotions like this, if you're talking about the stuff that we don't like to feel as much that is still there, I know it has been prominent for people, especially in the last couple of years, going through pandemics, switching careers, starting new things, always kind of being in that unknown territory. No one likes to feel like that. It's just a matter of, can I polish that skill of getting good at planning and pivoting and knowing that change is always going to come? So learning to live in that feeling of uncertainty a little bit better and not letting those anxious feelings come and, well, make you stop, make you give you that analysis paralysis thing that I've talked about a couple times. So I read an article on Healthline, which was reviewed by a PhD of psychology. And it says research has actually linked emotional repression to decreased immune system function. It can factor into mental health conditions like stress, anxiety, or depression. Physical symptoms can include muscle tension and pain, nausea and digestive problems, appetite changes, fatigue, and sleep problems. Could result in unresolved anger. You could likely develop high blood pressure, digestive issues, cardiovascular disease, all those things. So yeah, it might, make you sad and make you look weak, but do you want to feel any of those things? I know I don't. And when you're all up in your head, I've done this a lot. You lose your appetite. Well, you have some other bodily function issues that are also not fun because it gives you an upset stomach, or if it's long-term and you don't figure out how to deal with it, it leads to that high blood pressure or that anxiety or depression. And if you don't deal with that, I mean, heck, it could lead to a lot of other things. But what would happen if we actually dealt with all the emotions? If we actually, and I mean, you don't have to do it in the middle of everybody. Heck, go lock yourself in your room or go talk to somebody or do it in private, but figure out how those emotions are affecting you, how it's making you feel in your body, and how you personally need to work through all of that, because everybody works through it different. Everybody deals with emotions different. But when you suppress it and you say, yeah, I'm not great at dealing with emotions. Okay, well, you may not be great, but figure out how you need to do better at it, because suppressing them and not working through them isn't good for anybody. It could give you that muscle pain. It could give you the joint pain, the long-term cardiovascular disease. And then you're looking at depression, and that affects all of everything in your life. And that could lead to a lot of other things also, which you don't want to admit is going on. But if you could learn how you need to deal with emotions, accept that you have them, accept that you need to deal with them, and figure out how to deal with them as they come at you, it's a whole different ballgame. And yes, it takes work at first, but if you can learn how to know how it affects you, know when things are affecting you, you can figure out how you need to move forward. Because like I said, I didn't really want to do any of this. And finally, I got so sick of feeling crappy and conflicted and stressed and letting the anxiety take over me. I said, all right, I need to do something about this. I went with my gut and I figured it out. Am I still figuring it out? Absolutely. The more I do, the more big steps I take, the more I do what my passion is, the more I do all of these things or get out of my comfort zone in any way, I get all that stuff flooding back and I have to figure out how to deal with it. So I hope some of these things have resonated with you. I hope that you'll think about figuring out how you need to deal with it so it can help you, because nobody wants these long-term side effects. And a lot of people have to be on medication for all of this, when instead, if you can just work through the crap in your brain, the crap that's making you tight and tense and give you stomach issues and whatever else, if you could learn to work through that, maybe you wouldn't have to deal with some of those other things. and you could move on with your life and let go of things. So I hope this helped. And as always, go with your gut and then keep going.